Cek, halo, satu, dua, tiga. Halo, gimana? Cek, halo, halo, satu, dua, tiga, suara dicoba, halo.
Selamat pagi kawan-kawan semua. Bisa izinkan saya presentasi dalam bahasa Indonesia ya? Terima kasih. Dan terutama dalam sesi pagi ini, yang saya hormati Pak Rektor beserta jajarannya, sangat spesial CHLM yang mana menjadi tuan rumah untuk mengawali pembicaraan saya akan membawakan puisinya yang berjudul Pesan untuk Adik. Untuk mengibuli. Apa gunanya baca buku kalau mulut kau bungkam melulu? Di mana-mana moncong senjata, berdiri gagah. Kong kali kong dengan kaum cukong. Di desa-desa, rakyat dipaksa menjual tanah. Tapi, dengan harga murah, apa guna membaca buku? Kalau mulut kau bungkam melulu. Jika rakyat pergi ketika penguasa pidato, kita harus hati-hati. Barangkali mereka putus asa. Kalau rakyat bersembunyi dan berbisik-bisik ketika membicarakan masalahnya sendiri. Penguasa harus waspada dan belajar mendengar. Bila rakyat berani mengeluh, itu artinya sudah gasat. Dan bila omongan penguasa tidak boleh dibantah, kebenaran pasti terancam. Apabila usul ditolak tanpa ditimbang, suara dibungkam kritik, dilarang tanpa alasan, dituduh subversif dan mengganggu keamanan. Maka hanya ada satu kata, lawan, lawan, lawan. Terima kasih. Teman-teman semua, saya bingung apa yang akan saya bisa bagikan dengan kawan-kawan semua. Dan sebelumnya aku minta maaf karena sebenarnya presentasi saya sudah saya siapkan, tapi kemarin karena laptop saya rusak dan kemarin sempat pergi ke tempat servis, tapi sampai pagi ini belum ada kabar. Aku juga bingung, ini mau mulai dari mana dan akan berakhir di mana. Tapi aku akan coba dan mungkin dengan bantuan kawan-kawan, dengan pertanyaan akan lebih memperkaya presentasi saya. Bolehkah aku bertanya? Boleh? Teman-teman, sejauh mana mengenal Timor Leste? Mengenal atau tidak ya? Kenal? Puji Tuhan. Baik. Timor Leste nama kepanjangannya Republik Demokratik Timor Leste. Jadi negaranya negara berbasis kerakyatan, rakyat, dan mengadopsi nilai demokrasi. Peluang hak asasi manusia di Timor Leste itu seperti apa? Pertama, dalam Undang-Undang Dasar Timor Leste, pada khususnya Pasal 9 mengatakan bahwa Timor Leste menerima dan mengadopsi semua instrumen internasional sebagai undang-undang. Jadi itu sebuah kekuatan dan peluang bagi kita untuk tetap menagih harapan kita kepada negara. Karena paling tidak jeritan rakyat, negara harus ada di situ. Dan konsekuensi dari itu maka 7 konvensi internasional telah kita ratifikasi. ICCPR, Konvensi Hak Sipil Politik, Konvensi Internasional tentang Hak Ekonomi Sosial Budaya, Konvensi Anti Diskriminasi, Konvensi Internasional Anti Tortur itu apa ya, kamarada? Penyiksaan, Konvensi Internasional tentang Hak Anak, CEDAW. Sudah sampai apa tidak cukup? Kira-kira 7 konvensi itu yang telah diratifikasi oleh Timor Leste dan acuan pembangunan nasional kita berpijak pada 7 konvensi itu untuk menjamin hak-hak rakyat. Hak-hak sipilnya seperti apa, negara harus memenuhi kewajibannya seperti apa, dan hak ekonomi sosial budaya negara harus memenuhi kewajibannya seperti apa. Dan kerja kami hanya mengontrol bagaimana negara memenuhi kewajiban mereka. Tantangannya apa? Tantangannya pasti kalau karena negara baru merdeka, baru merdeka pada menerima kembali kedaulatan pada tahun 2002, dan orang-orang veteran masih berpengaruh di situ. Maka jika kita ngomong banyak tentang hak asasi manusia, ada slogan yang mengatakan bahwa HAM itu dari luar, itu adopsi dari luar. Dan seringkali aku mengatakan bahwa ketika kita berbicara masalah hak asasi manusia, maka itu kita berbicara masalah akar kehidupan rakyat. Jadi ketika akar pohon kita kerok-kerok atau kita potong atau kita keluarkan, maka tumbuhan itu akan layu dan bahkan akan mati. Perkembangan demokrasi di Timor Leste seperti apa? Berdasarkan nama Timor Leste adalah negara demokratik, maka praktek untuk meraba atau mengetahui bahwa praktek negara benar-benar menjalankan roda pemerintahan sesuai dengan norma demokrasi atau tidak. Maka di Timor Leste kita punya 3 pemilihan umum. Pertama, pemilihan untuk kepala desa, dan yang kedua pemilihan untuk presiden republik, dan yang ketiga adalah pemilihan untuk eksekutif. Dan sistem pemerintahan kita adalah semi presidensial. Jadi mungkin ini yang bisa saya share dengan kawan-kawan. Jika beberapa hal yang perlu diklarifikasi atau ingin tahu lebih mendalam, monggo. Terima kasih.
Thank you, Manuel. Now we have Sue from the Asia Democracy Network based in South Korea.
Good morning. My name is Sue. How are you? 안녕하세요. Wow. I know. Great. Thank you. First, I want to thank INFID, Komnasam, and the University of Jember and RWI for giving me this opportunity to speak to all of you. It's great to be back in a university setting with young people, kind of getting, positive energy. So I'm Sue, and I work at the Asia Democracy Network. It's a regional network. We work on promoting democracy across Asia. And we work with, we worked with civil society actors. We work with, advocates of democracy in governments to promote democracy as well as strengthen solidarity and unity, democratic unity across Asia. So along that, I'll be kind of speaking of how, as a person working in the region, sees the benefits of a human rights city, especially when we have this Human Rights City Festival in Jember this year. So if you I've been working in the region trying to strengthen solidarity and strengthen democracies across Asia, and that's a very difficult task. And to be honest, it'll probably take decades for it to actually really happen overnight. So, and it won't. And I'm seeing a lot of benefits of how local, it's more easier for us to go down to the local level, the city level, and strengthening governance, democracy, human rights, rather on the central level. So to kind of prove that case, I guess I'll kind of talk about the case of Seoul. I actually, not that I represent the city government of Seoul, I'm just a mere citizen. I live in Seoul, and just from my observations of how they're taking the human rights and democracy into their hands rather than waiting for the central government. So Seoul City has about 9.8 million people. It's a very heavily dense populated city, as you well know. And we recently have a mayor. He's a human rights lawyer and who became mayor in, I think, 2013. And once he got into office, he made it a point that he would put into practice the human rights ordinance into the city and create a governance system to create a avenue for human rights abuses to be addressed and to solve some of the inequalities and problems that a urban city actually are faced with. So he set up a policy ordinance to establish a committee to address discrimination, sexual harassment, violent forced evictions, and social inequalities, which are very, very common in heavily dense urban cities. And he focused on making human rights culture into the lives of the citizens. So establishing a lot of activities, festivals inside the city to make human rights not something foreign or very political, an idea or a value that is actually with us in our everyday lives. And he established a human rights governance, institutional consolidation to create an inclusive and participatory city. And there's actually a human rights complaint system in place. We have an ombudsman and a committee to address any of these issues. And with a lot of cities, I think the biggest challenge with big urban cities is gentrification. Tearing down old buildings, pushing out people for the, for the benefit of development. That really infringes a lot of human rights abuses to the people who have been living there for ages. And it's like a fight between social classes. So, very inequality is very wide in the city, and he was thinking about, or the Seoul City was thinking about how to address that. So the Seoul City came up with, along their human rights framework, came up with the sharing economy model, or took the sharing economy model that's been trending across the world. And it's creating a environment inside the city of, creating a platform where we share resources, not, driving a consumer economy. Rather, we already have so much resources. Everyone has resources. How can we share what we have so we're not buying new things or creating new things for the sake of that? There's a lot of abandoned buildings in Seoul, and a lot of government owned buildings as well, and that was, he was thinking of how do we utilize these buildings for the benefit of the people. So taking the sharing economy concept, a lot of these government buildings were open to the public, creating spaces for people to gather, rest, or do public seminars, community meetings, making it very easily accessible to people. And there were also there's housing and transportation, parking shortages, a lot of pollution in the city, and one of the solutions that they came up with to alleviate that was creating sharing bikes. I'm sure you've seen a lot of this in other cities as well. There's a lot of bike stations across the city where people, anyone could use. You just sign up for an app and then you just rent these bikes all across the city. So it reduces having to drive or using a motorbike. You just cycle. So I love this sharing bike system. I go to work riding a bike every day. It keeps you healthy, and also it reduces carbon, what is that? Output, yes, thank you. So a lot of these are some of the things that we are seeing how the sharing economy is kind of helping, strengthen local governance and democracy. We're seeing how cities are taking their problems into their own hands and creating direct solutions and implementing it rather than having to wait for a central government. And I think there's so many great cases in Indonesia as well with human rights cities where, the mayors, the city level, they know more specifically on what the problems of the city is. And then for them to embrace human rights cities, local democracy, and then coming up with their own solutions. I think that is the more practical, more positive outlook to strengthening democracy in Asia. So, thank you.
Thank you, Sue. Now we have Ms. Nicole Imler from the University of Humanistic Studies in Utrecht, Netherlands.
Yeah, hello everybody. Thank you very much for welcoming me here. I'm very happy to see so many students interested in the topic. So I'm teacher at the university and doing researcher at the same time. So I'm very enthusiastic that you are enthusiastic about the topic. So I hope I will tell you today something about how Utrecht has become a human rights city, because I heard some question yesterday on the conference, how does this process, how do you become it? So I give you just a glimpse. And then maybe also, what can be the role of the university? How do we cooperate? And, what could you then also, as potential researcher, teacher, what could you contribute? And thank you very much, Manuel, for this start. I think this poem gave us the need of why we are doing what we are doing. Many of us, we have the history of different violences, of different histories in our family history. It's not something about, certain groups, certain minorities. No, it's about the majority. Everybody has a certain story who relates to a human rights issue. And I think that is important, what also Sue said. It's not about human rights as a legal concept. Human rights an issue you put at court, where you pursue legal action. No, human rights is something which concerns us all, and we need to build a human rights culture, embedded in our everyday practices, so that we try to reduce the way of violations in the way of our everyday behavior. And I think here's also the potential of human rights cities, is that it gets, out of the human rights, out of the legal frame, On the one hand, it addresses human rights violations, there are clear clarifications for, what is a human rights violation. On the other hand, it also shows you that it's also a culture, how we behave towards each other and how we could contribute. So some words about Utrecht. How does it start, the becoming of a human rights city? Mostly you see it starts with the story of a city. You have an event, a good event or a bad event in your city's past, and this makes, gives the motivation and the energy of the major or the civil society to address human rights violations. I cannot talk in detail because I don't know, but Jamba has such an history as well. But for example, in Utrecht, it's the Treaty of Utrecht. The Treaty of Utrecht in 1713 was the first peace treaty in Europe, where the different, after a lot of period of religious wars, different kind of, didn't call them nations at the time, but regions came together to negotiate peace. So having, a whole Europe coming to Utrecht negotiating peace, they took as an inspiration 300 years later to say, there is a legacy in the city to make it a human rights cities. So this is a good part of the story. I can also give you the bad part of the story. This, for example, the cities are also involved in the slave trade. We always talk about the VOC. We call it often the golden age of the Netherlands, the Dutch Empire. There was a lot of trade with Indonesia, but also with the Caribbean. And there is a legacy of building economic infrastructure and exchange, but it was also a legacy of exploitation. And what we see nowadays in the cities in the Netherlands, that they slowly open up to this question. And they show this legacy in their cities. They show the places, the houses, where entrepreneurs who made benefit from this period where they lived. So what they show, that they say, we have this legacy and we want to learn from it. So this is, kind of inspiration where it comes from. But Utrecht was asked to. When Utrecht was asked to think about becoming human rights cities, the first question for city officials was also, what does it mean? What could it add to us? And the first thing they did was, for example, they looked at their own policies. How do we deal with disabled? How do we deal with refugees, with asylum seekers, the weak persons in society? So are our policies good enough? So human rights cities could be used as a concept to look at what you are already doing, and to look at whether the policies are human rights proof. On the other hand, it also created the second measure. What they did, they built what you called a human rights culture. So what they built is a human rights coalition. And this coalition was, they asked the university, they asked NGOs, they asked civil society and people who already do human rights practice, but they don't call it like this, to come together and to meet regular in human rights cafes. They built a network. And what it showed is that many of the people, I think also here in the room, they do practices, they help refugees, or they help cooking soup for people who are poor, or they help disabled. This is all human rights work. But it's often not called like this. But if you bring those different groups and initiatives together under the umbrella of human rights, then it stands much stronger in society, because then you see how you contribute also to a larger social movement. So this helped, for example, in Utrecht to build an umbrella between the different organizations in the city, and somehow gave them also a stronger position within the municipality. And what Utrecht is very much engaged in, to learn from other cities. So there's a lot of trying to meet other human rights cities and to learn from the best practices. And I think we heard mostly best practices on the conferences, to be honest, but I think we can also learn really from the bad practices. Why does some policies does not work? Because many policies are made on the desk and they are not based on research. That's something which is not just in Indonesia like this, I heard, but it's rumor. But it's also to make really good policies, that it comes, to the people in need. You need people who talk to them, who gather data, who analyze the data, and there the university comes in. What we as University of Humanistic Studies is do, that we are training our students to, for example, to make little projects where they interview people, where they ask, what are the needs, and how you analyze then the needs, and how can you translate the data you have into better policies. So how can we contribute actually to improve the policies there are? So we can't improve if we don't have data. So in this, I mean, I make here a plea, you know, to get the university involved, but I think it's could be a relevant, you know, contribution also to make human rights cities, you know, because human rights cities are very local. You know, every city has different needs. And these needs, you can't copy-paste a human rights model from Seoul or from another country. So you need to be very specific. And to be specific, you need the data from your own city. And I think here is also the power of the human rights cities, that it use, you know, a concept, but it makes it local. And then it meets also the need of the people. So this is my small input, and I wait for your questions to specify what you're interested in. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Nicole Himmler. Next we have Ms. Amanda Martinez from the United Cities and Local Government, CISDP, from Barcelona, Spain.
Thank you. So, actually, as I'm always saying, I'm not a human rights expert at all. I work for local government. I work for United Cities and Local Governments, UCLG. It's a global network of cities. We call it local governments because it can be region, it can be different kind of entities. It can be like a regency of Jamber, it's not exactly a city, so we call it local governments. And United Cities and Local Governments, this global network, it's gathering maybe 250,000 local governments across the world, working together on different topics. It's a movement which has been gaining a lot of power on the last year because we are experiencing across the world decentralization. It means that central governments are giving more and more power to local governments to make policies. They give them some resources, some financial resources, sorry. And so they have the duty to make some local policies, no? To be more efficient on the response of the public sector with these public policies. So with decentralization process, cities have been gaining a lot of power, but it also deals with the urbanization process. We are now living in a world where more than 50% of the people are living in urban areas. And of course, it means that human rights are becoming huge challenges in these cities because that's the place where they live. And I think it's really interesting also to say that facing all this deep change of governance we are all experiencing, some local governments across the world decided to cooperate, I would say, that's the word that Nicole was using, together to see how they could face the urban challenges, how to face urban inequalities, how to achieve cities to be better place for more social justice, for more human cities, how we can face these urban inequalities. So in the late 90s and in the early 2000s, they started to meet at the international level, mostly in the World Social Forum. It was held in Porto Alegre in Brazil. They started to have a dialogue between local government representative and civil society representative. And they started to exchange and to see how they could bring new ideas to make a difference at the local level to face these urban challenges. No? With this idea, with this dream to say that if we change locally the way we do it, maybe we can change the world. Because if a lot of different cities across the world apply human rights, for example, policies, we will be able all together to make a change in this world. So they started to have this dialogue, and they created the Committee of Social Inclusion, Participatory Democracy and Human Rights that I am coordinating. This committee is inside UCLG, and it gathers these local governments who met maybe 20 years ago, and then who wanted to share this interesting dialogue with civil society inside this network of local government, inside UCLG. And they started cooperate together, no? Networking together, and just call to other local governments to talk with them on what were the challenges, on how to respond it, and give a really concrete approach to the human rights issues. So what we have been doing on the last, because the committee was created in 2004, on the last 15 years, is to identify good practices, to identify experiences, initiatives taken by the local governments who help to face the human rights challenges. And they started wanted to build this movement of human rights cities, how we can make a city known for its involvement, its commitment toward human rights at the international level, how we can bring to the international discussion these commitments of human rights at the local level. And that's one of the main purpose of the committee, how we can bring these voices together of Utrecht, of Guangzhou, of Seoul, of Mexico, of Barcelona, of all these cities who are acting for human rights, how we can bring them together and make their voice heard at the in the international debate as one of the main challenges and one of the main way to respond to these urban challenges. So, as Nicole said really well, we're trying to provide this very concrete approach. I think that's it's important to say two things. First, that even a human rights city is full of contradictions. You don't have a perfect human rights city. It's always, it's a goal, but we will never achieve it. So we need to have a constant process. That's why it's really important to be engaged with civil society, to be aware of what are the main challenges of the city. And they're not all the same everywhere. For example, in Mexico City, they are developing a new human rights plan since last year, which is based on the disappearation linked to the drug cartels. A lot of people are disappearing because of the war on drugs. So they are developing a specific policy on this that is very rooted to this context of Mexico City. We, for example, in Barcelona, they are having a lot of interest in developing local policies on discrimination, to fight the discrimination, because there is all the migration issues, which is really strong in Europe. We are having a lot of we are living a rising of hate speech, of xenophobia. So the city of Barcelona took the responsibility to fight these hate speeches. They are providing, for example, a plan to fight against Islamophobia. They develop an office of non-discrimination also. They are having a local ombudsman that is also a practice we can see in a lot of cities, of human rights cities, developing this local ombudsman in the different neighborhoods of a city. So each of the human rights cities are developing their strategy based on their own challenges. And I think it's interesting to see how they can dialogue, because even if they have different situations, they share some common points, and they share also some common issues. So, well, that's basically what I don't know if I would have to be more long, but maybe to say that what we do at the Committee of Social Inclusion, Participatory Democracy and Human Rights is, yes, trying to make this visible. How we can make this action visible at the international stage. How, based on these local and concrete practices, we can negotiate on what to do with the global agendas. Because you know that there is international institutions who are decided about what we should do about these urban challenges. So we're trying to bring this local government perspective inside this discussion, but also to exchange the experience between the cities. So the city of Mexico can explain what he's doing to another city in Africa, and vice versa. No, having this dialogue all the time. Because I would just finish saying that you cannot achieve a human rights city by yourself. It has to be a synergy. It has to be a synergy between civil society, between local government, between research, and this is the good combo if we want to achieve human rights city. Thank you.
Thank you,
It's
Q&A?
working? Is that working?
Is this working?
No, I don't think so. You should take this.
Hello. This is battery low. Now we have time for, there we go, now you can hear me. We have 30 to 40 minutes for a Q&A. So if you have a question, please feel free. Yes. Can we have a microphone sent to him? This doesn't work. Yeah. Doesn't work. Is there a new one? That one maybe?
Cek. Good morning and assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
Saya punya pertanyaan untuk Bapak Manuel tentang ini sistem pemilu. Kalau di Indonesia kan selama masa kampanye itu kedua calon presiden itu diserang isu sara dan ujaran kebencian. Nah, untuk di Timor Leste apakah ada isu serupa selama masa kampanye pemilu? Dan yang kedua, apakah di Timor Leste ini ada lembaga peradilan yang tugasnya untuk menguji peraturan perundang-undangan yang dinilai bertentangan dengan hak-hak asasi manusia, dan apakah punya kewenangan untuk menyelesaikan sengketa pemilu? Dan pertanyaan yang kedua untuk Madam Amanda, apakah UCLG ini punya peranan untuk mengadakan audiensi antara lembaga perwakilan maksudnya lembaga representatif di daerah Spanyol, dan apakah UCLG juga menerima aduan dari masyarakat terkait adanya pelanggaran HAM yang ada di daerah di Spanyol? Sekian dan terima kasih.
So maybe starting saying that so UCLG is based in Barcelona in Spain, but it's a worldwide network. So we're not only dealing with the Spanish context, but actually, I mean, there is huge tensions between Catalonia, the region of where is Barcelona, and the Spanish central government. You are aware about that. I mean, I think that's why you're asking me. And for example, Barcelona city, part of their commitment to become a human rights city is also based on this context of Catalonia and this state violence and all the different protests that we see in Catalonia for the two last year has also been a starting point for the City Hall to engage more with human rights, also with their citizens. They are totally convinced that they should develop a human rights culture, a human rights education with their citizens, linked to this violation of human rights that we have seen in this conflict between Catalonia and the central government. I don't know if I am answering your question, but that's one of the points. And on the second question you made about UCLG, so it's a network of local governments. It's like a big organization, so we don't have the power, we don't have legal tools, I would say, to say that, oh, there is violation, so we're going to force the city to do this change. No, it's not the UN. We are mostly working on a basis of exchange between city, on the dialogue city to city. And the way we think we can change it is, for example, some human rights cities start talking with other cities who are not convinced with human rights that they should do it. No? If you have the mayor of Barcelona talking to another city which is not working on human rights, but sharing his experience, maybe it will convince this other city to work like this. It's advocacy work. It's not like legal tools, but it's advocacy work mostly. And about the complaints of the citizens, so I would not say that we receive the complaints of the citizens, but we do work with civil society organizations also at the international level, at the local level, and we're always trying for advancing this human rights work to be on this. No, I don't have example of a human rights city not working with its civil society. So this, it's the involvement of the civil society is the proof that there is this human rights dialogue. But actually, and I will finish on this, it's a really good question because we are now opening a discussion on how to recognize human rights city at the international level. And we're starting a work with the OHCHR on this, with the High Commissioner on Human Rights. And on this discussion of label, which is a very hard, complicated question because we have a lot of different models. But one of the questions was, what do we do if we put a human rights label to a city and its civil society is complaining that they're not ensuring the human rights at the local level? How can we ensure that's not only a label, but that there is ways also for civil society to say, no, they're not a human rights city, because they are not ensuring this basic right of... So this is part of the discussion we should have also.
Terima kasih atas pertanyaannya. Boleh aku tahu siapa namanya? Aryan. Terima kasih. Tadinya aku pikir setelah aku bicara sudah nggak ada lagi pertanyaan ya. Baik. Dalam presentasi saya yang tadi aku bilang laptop saya rusak itu, aku ada satu gambar penting di mana ada jembatan tua, tapi jembatan itu runtuh. Banyak orang mau menyeberangi ke sebelah, tapi jembatan itu runtuh. Kenapa demikian? Karena sejarah Timor Leste dan Indonesia itu, proses demokratisasi di Indonesia dan proses kemerdekaan Timor Leste itu ada korelasi, ada ikatan emosional yang kuat. Di mana waktu itu kami mengatakan bahwa tidak ada demokratisasi di Indonesia ketika tidak ada kemerdekaan buat Timor Leste, dan tidak ada kemerdekaan buat Timor Leste ketika tidak ada demokratisasi di Indonesia. Tapi sayangnya jembatan tua itu udah runtuh. Makanya pertanyaan tadi, apakah sama setelah dalam hal pemilihan itu, kampanye itu, ada enggak praktek-praktek di Timor Leste seperti di Indonesia? Tentu. Karena setiap hari kita channelnya Metro TV, SCTV, Indosiar, Indomie. Ya. Pertanyaan kedua tentang sistem peradilan. Untuk sementara kita baru sampai di pengadilan tinggi. Tapi bisa diproses perkara pemilu. Pengadilan tinggi itu bisa proses perkara pemilu dan di situ sudah selesai. Faktor sumber daya yang belum juga memadai untuk mengisi dalam mandat konstitusi, ada struktur peradilannya itu sampai Mahkamah Konstitusi, tetapi belum bisa terbentuk karena faktor sumber daya manusia yang belum terpenuhi. Terima kasih.
Cek.
Can we have a microphone on this side, please?
Thank you. My name is Evi Hara. I'm from Social and Political Science Faculty, University of Jember. Thank you for coming to Indonesia, for all the presenters. I like Spain. I love Barcelona. And yeah, it is very interesting to hear your speech on human rights cities. I have a very specific questions to all the panelists. I'm not sure whether my question is relevant or not. So how your cities deal with the sexual harassment, either in school, universities, or in working place? Thank you.
We'll answer his question first and then. Yeah. Sure. We'll have one more question and we'll answer those together.
So, my name is Tatat from Infid. I have a question to Amanda, Nicole, and also Suf. So the first question is regarding the how your cities or how your cities deal with the human rights violations in the past. So, for example, Nicole mentioned about what happened in Germany. And also from what I read like several years ago in the Netherlands, there's an ongoing debate or argumentation regarding the how to kind of to reveal. So there's an intention to reveal the historical documents regarding the colonial past, for example, in the Netherlands, which also quite related to Indonesia. And also, I mean, how's the debate, the ongoing debate right now regarding that? And then also in South Korea, if you have like the mechanism to deal with the human rights violation in the past. And then the second question also to, this is also, ini pertanyaan juga untuk Pak Monteiro. Apakah ada mekanisme untuk menyelesaikan pelanggaran-pelanggaran HAM masa lalu yang terjadi di Timor Leste misalnya, yang mungkin terkait dengan Indonesia? Lalu yang kedua pertanyaan khususnya untuk kota-kota untuk yang tinggal di Eropa mungkin. So for Amanda and Nicole, regarding how you deal with the rights movement, so right-wing movement in your city, because from what we know that it's growing, the number is growing. Like the right-wing party voters are always increased in every election. So how you deal with that? It's not only we all know that it's not only the situation in Europe, but also everywhere. Also in Indonesia, we have also this different kind of right-wing movement here. So if you can share how you deal with that, thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for this question. I think. Part of why human rights cities, the local level is so relevant is because we have this right-wing conservative national policies, which became quite increasing in the last decade. And what we see, for example, in the Netherlands, on national level, we have quite a restrictive refugee policy. And so the city of Utrecht and other cities, they became a bit unsatisfied with because they have the problems on the local level. For example, refugees are in a long procedure and then they have them in the city, so they have to provide something to them. They don't set children on the street. So what they did is actually that they made a court case against the national government to say we want to provide them with bed, bath and bread. So actually they tried to improve on a city level. Was this me? So they tried to improve on a city level the circumstances for refugees, and they won against the national government. So you can see that there is some power on the local level to force the national state to say, your policies are not good enough. We want to do something else. And then, of course, you hope in the long run that your local refugee policies, that they gain, more the role model for others. To be more specific, for example, this right-wing conservatism we see in Europe has a lot to do with people. For example, we have post-colonial diaspora, Indonesians who came to the Netherlands, Caribbeans. And a lot of them don't feel still integrated enough. They don't feel that they have arrived there. So many of them are also, a bit distant and fear that they lose the few privileges they have, that they lose them to the refugees. So there is a kind of, the problem is that the government has not integrated certain groups so that they are also welcoming to new migrants. So it's actually also, up to municipalities to give the citizens security for, the status they have. About sexual harassment, I don't know about specific policies in this respect. But for example, what you see when we stay with the example of refugees, there's, for example, there are cultural issues in those neighborhoods. That certain, for example, the narrative that if you have, so it's a very bad narrative. I'm hesitant to share, but it's a dominant narrative in public discourse, is that people coming with a different cultural background, coming, for example, to the Netherlands or to Germany, that they don't accept the women. So that there are a lot of, sexual harassment and not acceptance the women's rights in Europe. So you have a lot of clashes in those poor neighborhoods where refugee asylum seekers is, and they are framed that way. However, it's also a question of framing. These kind of clashes has not always. It's also because they don't live together. So what this kind of new refugee policy was, for example, that they try to make use of the neighborhood live together with the refugees. So also are not separated men and women. No, to bring them in an area together, so that they meet each other, that they encounter. And actually, the experience of having both groups in the same house, so people from Utrecht who have a little prospect, were in the same housing, living with refugees, and they got the same training. They got the training in business, they got a training in English, and they got kind of, social practices which brought them together. And this is a kind of, which showed that actually harassment go from there to there. So there was much less incidents, or people, so the fear of people, mostly it's about fear also, it decreased. So it's, so creating the opportunity that groups who normally not meet, and that there is some kind of exchange can help.
Thank you for the questions. I think for sexual harassment in South Korea, policy-wise, I'm not very sure. But as we did see a huge Me Too movement happen last year and up until now, and I think just from the observations of that, sexual harassment in Korea, and especially in the workplace, has been a growing, swelling wound. It was just getting ready to pop, and it was very bad. And we kind of realized with the Me Too movement that there are no sufficient policies in place in the workplace or in organizations to address these issues. I think right now it's because the situation is being publicly shown. A lot of women are, courageously coming out and, saying that, telling their testimonies and stories. It's really helping kind of strengthen the policy, kind of putting into place systems in organizations and workplaces, procedures to address these issues. And I think, a lot of Korea seems very sparkly and, nice on the outside, but just with the Me Too movement, we realized there was a lot of, issues like this that has not been addressed. Gender inequality the gap is very big. And there was just no space for women to talk about issues like this. And the movement, I think, helped with giving a space for women to be more forward and creating an opportunity to set procedures and policies. As far as your question about human rights abuses in the past, I think it hasn't, that's, I think, also a challenge for Korea. There's a lot of human rights abuses, especially during colonial times as well for Korea, that has not been addressed. There's a lot of transitional justice issues that hasn't been addressed also, which kind of impacts the quality of democracy in South Korea. But I think if I want to see it on the positive side, at least the South Korean government has, tries very hard to set up truth commissions to look into these issues and situations. And also, there's a very vibrant civil society in Korea, which is really the most important part of addressing these issues. They are really driving and bringing out these stories and abuses and asking, government for accountability and raising awareness for people. So that's how I would observe South Korea addressing those past issues.
I just add one sentence because I didn't respond to what you said, the digging into the colonial archives in the Netherlands. I think the challenge is here. We have this new huge movement on looking into the colonial archive. And we have those court cases. We have a new government project on it. So there is new attention. But the challenge is exactly this Indonesian-Netherlands relationship. Because there is some fear from the Indonesian side, the ministries and if the Dutch dig into their violence, that actually, groups here in Indonesia can force their government also to dig, what was our part back then. So always when there's something in the Netherlands happens on the colonial past, it has some resonance in Indonesia and the other way around. And at this moment, it creates some interesting dynamics. And I think when you look, for example, at the homepage Historici Bersama, you can find quite a lot of interesting information on that.
I will try to be quick so we can have other questions. Maybe on sexual harassment, just to focus maybe on practices from local governments, because there is a lot of practices available from NGOs. I'm thinking, for example, of the Seine-Saint-Denis, which is in France. One of the first measures they put in place was to create an observatory. So to have data on the sexual harassment, and to have a follow-up each year, each month, each day on what's happening with sexual harassment. So it brings to public debate a lot of information of the reality of the sexual harassment. I'm also thinking about there is a lot of cities who created municipal council of women, especially to address sexual harassment in public spaces and public transportation, for example. So they are organizing working tour in the city, so women can express how they feel in the city and where are the points where they feel insecure, actually, and try to address these kind of issues. There is a lot of education program and awareness program also on sexual harassment. You have some cities who has opened a telephone number so you can call if you have sexual harassment, or organize meeting with the local cops, with the policy, so they can understand better which are the problems with sexual harassment, and they are sensitized to how to respond when a woman has experienced a sexual harassment. So there is a lot of different concrete local policies that you can put in place from a local government perspective to improve the response to this dramatic issue. I think it would be also interesting to see how local governments has advanced on these kind of issues, because the women's rights were not respond the same way 30 years ago than today, and we have new practices, and it would be interesting to see what are the new practices, and the response of public spaces is one of these actually, on how to be women in public spaces. More specifically on human rights violations in the past, there is also one of the work we are identifying at the committee is all the work on the peace culture and on the memory. And actually, for example, the city of Gwangju, who were there in the festival, they are a strong example on how to deal with memory of human rights violation. No, so basically, what they decided is to create a strategy to disseminate what happened during the Gwangju uprising. Well, there was I don't know if you know the history, and if you were there in the festival. I will not explain everything, but they had a huge human rights violation from state violence in the 80s, and they decided then to create a peace culture with their inhabitants, with the citizens. That led to the creation of the World Human Rights Cities Forum, where it's a place where they share this experience of Gwangju and how they respond, how the citizens mobilize to respond to this human rights violation from state violence. So there is a lot of cities also working on this memory, on this peace culture. I'm also thinking about Granollers, which is in Spain. They were having huge human rights violation during the dictator in Spain, during Franco. And they did all educational program also on this peace culture, and they are really involved in the Mayor for Peace network, which is now starting to make the link between what happened maybe 50 years ago, what's happening now with the rise of extreme right, of the right wing. That was your other question. And I think there is a huge challenge to connect human rights violation of the past with what is going on now, with some of the speech we can hear about the right wing or the extreme right wing. And some local governments are taking this responsibility to build with the citizens, to be like the guardian of human rights. And it's really interesting to see what are the concrete policies they are implementing. I'm also thinking about Barcelona, for example. On the last mandate of the current mayor, they decided to change a lot of name of the streets the name were from colonial people. So they had a huge pressure from civil society organization to change the street name, not to be just glorifying colonial people, especially in South America. So we have a lot of examples on this, and I invite you to check our website if you want to know more. And lastly, about the right movement, well, Nicole said a lot of things already on this rising. I think it's really important always to say that it's really worldwide. I'm traveling everywhere. I was last week in South Africa. They're experiencing exactly the same thing. That like 2 months ago, they had a huge xenophobic rise where a lot of people killed people from Nigeria, from Congo, from migrants, workers who came to South Africa to open shops. And it's really political. So we should never forget that human rights is also linked with political willing. It deals with politics. It's strongly rooted with politics, and local government can take responsibility on this also.
Terima kasih, Pak. Pertanyaannya, ada atau tidak harassment seksual di Timor Leste? Jawabannya iya. Ada. Kenapa ada? Karena negara post konflik, aku selalu bilang itu masyarakat itu semuanya jiwanya sedang sakit. Dan jiwanya sakit itu orang bisa lakukan apa saja. Dan sampai saat ini negara belum melakukan apa-apa untuk mengobati jiwa yang sakit. Dan justifikasi saya apa? Di dalam penjara sekarang nomornya 865 penjara yang dipenjarakan, dan dari 865 itu persentase nomor satunya violence sexual violence nomor satu, dan yang kedua kekerasan dalam rumah tangga. Pertanyaan kedua, ada atau tidak proses untuk kasus pelanggaran hak asasi manusia? Jawaban pertama adalah mandat konstitusi Timor Leste, di mana tertuang dalam pasal 150 yang mengatakan bahwa kejahatan yang terjadi pada 25 April 1974 sampai dengan 30 Desember 99 itu dianggap kejahatan berat melawan kemanusiaan. Dengan demikian, organisasi saya dan Elsam, kita publikasikan sebuah buku yang titlenya Crimes Against Immunity, Timor Leste, East Timor 1999, Crimes Against Immunity. Nah, di sini saya mau betulkan bahwa yang akan kita proses itu bukan Indonesia, tapi aktor yang merupakan musuh kita bersama. Musuh kita itu siapa? Rezim Soeharto. Kita tidak bermusuhan dengan rakyat Indonesia. Karena kami akan mati di sini dari 99 ke belakang ketika rakyat Indonesia tidak melindungi kami. Jadi musuh kita sama. Kenapa tadi aku bilang bahwa jembatan tua kita itu telah runtuh? Dengan demikian, siklus impunitasnya itu sangat menggigih di Indonesia dan maupun di Timor Leste. Mari kita putuskan siklus impunitas itu dengan membawa aparat yang melakukan pelanggaran hak asasi manusia di masa lalu ke pengadilan yang kredibel. Dan mandat konstitusi Timor Leste dalam hal ini pasal 173 yang mengatakan bahwa proses peradilan untuk kejahatan masa lalu, komposisi hakimnya minimal 1 hakim internasional dan hakim nasional. Tapi persoalan yang sekarang kita hadapi, pemerintahan Sanana mengeluarkan satu resolusi untuk kemudian memaksa parlemen untuk mengusir hakim-hakim internasional dari Timor Leste, berdampak pada berkas kasus pelanggaran hak asasi manusia yang terjadi pada 25 April 1974 hingga 30 Desember 99 tidak diproses sampai sekarang. Dengan demikian, korban dan keluarganya sekarang tetap menangis dan tetap menanti keadilan yang sesungguhnya. Jadi kita tetap berjuang. Perjuangan kita belum selesai. Jadi mudah-mudahan Infit tetap mengundang kami untuk datang dalam event-event yang diorganisir oleh Infit. Untuk kemudian kita satukan kembali langkah kita untuk melawan rezim yang diktator, rezim yang tidak menghargai hukum, rezim yang tidak menghargai hak asasi manusia. Perjuangan kita bersama. Bukan hanya perjuangan di Timor Leste dan bukan pula hanya perjuangan di Indonesia. Mari kita rapatkan barisan kembali untuk menghancurkan rezim yang diktator, rezim yang tidak menghargai hak asasi manusia, Mari kita tumbangkan kembali seperti rezim Soeharto yang dulu begitu gigih. Kita mampu menumbangkan itu. Kenapa rezim-rezim yang sekarang loyo kita nggak bisa tumbangkan? Keadilan yang lain tidak bisa kita dapat ketika kasus pelanggaran hak asasi manusia masa lalu tidak kita urus dengan baik. Jadi ini persoalan di Timor Leste. Mateus Bere 2016 dia lintas batas ditangkap karena namanya ada di daftar serious crime unit. Ditangkap, didekam di penjara LP, kemudian Sanana, Ramuzorta, Maria Alkatiri, mereka mengeluarkan Mateus Bere dari penjara pada jam subuh. Semua orang lagi tidur dan semua orang tidak tahu, mereka keluarkan Mateus Bere dari penjara. Dan ketika kami ngomong masalah pelanggaran hak asasi manusia masa lalu, interpretasi para politisi bahwa jangan membawa Indonesia ke pengadilan karena kita bersahabat. Kami mengatakan bahwa kita tidak bermusuhan dengan rakyat Indonesia, tetapi kita bermusuhan dengan rezim yang diktator dan rezim yang tidak pro rakyat. Hal yang sama dilawan oleh kawan-kawan di Indonesia dan hal yang sama dilawan oleh kami di Timor Leste. Kami bilang seperti itu. Dan para politisi mengatakan bahwa lebih baik lupakan masa lalu dan mari kita buka lembaran baru untuk melangkah ke depan. Kami bilang langkah ke depan itu akan suram, akan gelap ketika kita tidak mencerminkan pada masa lalu kita. Tetap aja Pak Sanana bilang, kemarin dia terima ini novel di Kamboja, Sanana. Novel honoris causa dari salah satu universitas di Kamboja. Buat kami itu tidak boleh penghalang pengadilan yang sesungguhnya. Rakyat haus akan pengadilan, rakyat haus akan penegakan hukum. Jadinya apa yang terjadi, Mbak? Terulang kembali kasus pembunuhan terhadap Major Alfredo. Yang mana waktu itu sempat kontroversial juga karena dia muncul di Metro TV. Dan kemudian terjadi pengulangan pembunuhan terhadap Makmuruk, di mana salah satu pentolang kemerdekaan, teman baiknya Sanana Gusmaun, dia meninggal dengan 45 peluru. Hancur semua. Lagi-lagi terjadi pengulangan di tahun 2006. Kasus rasis. Dan sekarang kita nggak boleh ngomong Sanana olah dia, Sanana Anda tidak baik. Kita akan berhadapan dengan rakyat banyak. Begitu, Mbak, jawabannya.
We have time for one or two more questions. Okay, I have to choose, don't I? Let's see. We have one here and one over here. Two over here.
Okay, good morning. Thank you. I really appreciate this discussion. Mainly, this is part of the festival HAM. I want to ask for Madam Su, how the government in your city facilitates human rights, because I think this is this city that gets a title of friendly human rights city, but if we visit the village, there are still many problems. For a simple example, is many roads that is damaged or potholes. How are motorists and community or people rights protected? Even though we are holding a human rights festival with a large fund, which is maybe able to cover it. Thank you.
So, good morning, everybody. I'm from the Faculty of Social and Political Studies. I have a question for Ms. Su Yeon-seo. My question is, you have said before that discrimination, hate speech, and social conflicts are among the city's main challenges, and especially the gender inequality in Korea are still high, and there are so many sexual harassment and sexual violence towards women in Korea. And I've also read some articles that there's this case, like Molka case, hidden cam, spy cam case. Also, after the Me Too movements, that there are so many women in Korea finally speak up about how they experience sexual harassment, especially among the artists groups. And I have this question. You have said that the government actually have done things to reduce this gender inequality. And what I want to ask is, what is the biggest challenge for the society or women in promoting gender equality and feminism in South Korea? And are Korean men also being supportive in this kind of movement? Thank you so much.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Perkenalkan, nama saya Muhammad Daniar Indar Muslim, saya dari Fakultas Hukum. Saya mau bertanya pada Bapak Manuel Monteiro. Selama bertahun-tahun saya sering melihat berita dari Timur Leste, itu mulai berkembang isu-isu pelanggaran HAM atau isu-isu LGBT. Apakah di penegakan HAM di Timur Leste sendiri itu mengenal batas dari nilai-nilai agama? Dan sebab isu itu, saya mengetahui bahwa tentang HAM di Timur Leste adalah berkembangnya para pejuang LGBT agar mendapatkan hak yang sama dan tidak adanya diskriminasi. Terima kasih.
Thank you for the questions. I'm very impressed. Many of you know the situation in South Korea in many respects more than I do, I think. But thank you so much. I think the first question was, how does the local government implement human rights policies in South Korea? I think, and I agree with you, a lot of these festivals do take a lot of the tax dollars of the people to put on, and how is it actually being implemented, right? I think I forgot to mention when I was speaking, so one of the specific ways to help address some of these issues that Seoul City is taking is, so there's a lot of gentrification, there's a lot of development happening inside the city. So it's driving out a lot of merchants that's been there for decades, years. And that's an abuse in the fact that they're forcing eviction of these people who've been there just in the name of developing. So specifically how Seoul City is addressing that issue is also there's a high rate of unemployment among youth. So they took, how do you address forced evictions, gentrification, as well as high youth unemployment? Because usually you think development will create a lot more jobs for youth. And it's interesting that the Seoul City took this approach of reviving a lot of these old buildings and where a lot of these merchants are, keeping them there, funding reconstruction, just kind of cleaning it up, making it more, easily accessible for people. And also some of the empty spaces in these complexes where these merchants are, giving spaces to young entrepreneurs to also, create their own small business. So it's creating a space for youth and also the merchants who've been there to coexist. So it's pretty much kind of addressing the same two issues, youth unemployment as well as gentrification, forced evictions. It's actually, at least there's a lot of, challenges and limitations to this model. But I'm just as an observer, as a person who live in Seoul, I don't know if it's like this, the whole retro trend is happening. People are really going back to the 80s. They really like, thinking like the 80s fashions is coming back. So a lot of reviving these old buildings into spaces has become popular for people to visit. So that's kind of a, I guess, specific example of how the city is trying to address some of these issues. As far as the question on sexual harassment, so the biggest challenge, men have been generally supportive. There are, a group of men who are supportive of the movement and of this. But then at the same time, I think the biggest challenge is that in Korean society, it's such a patriarchal society that there is a large amount of people who condemn the women or kind of criticize the women. So, which is very alarming to me, which I found it very alarming. There's a level of misogyny that still exists in Korea. The Me Too movement came out, and I was very surprised that you knew exactly about the spy cams and the artists that are kind of struggling with sexual harassment in the industry. And it's really deeply rooted with the patriarchal, bureaucracy, power dynamics that's deeply rooted in the society, and it is still yet to be addressed. And I think that's the biggest challenge, kind of overcoming those old social standards, values, and giving that space to women to really come forward and talk about what they went through, because through their testimonies it sheds light to the actual problem, and it helps the society try to find a way to address that. So thank you for that question.
Yeah.
Isu tentang LGBTI, kita di timur juga ada gerakan itu, karena kita meratifikasi konvensi internasional tentang anti rasial, anti apa ya? Jadi konvensi internasional tentang diskriminasi juga kita ratifikasi. Jadi gerakan untuk kelompok masyarakat LGBTI masih jalan, dan voice mereka juga didengar. Jadi dulu ada bahasa lokalnya, mereka selalu sebut panleru. Tapi sekarang dengan advokasinya teman-teman yang bergabung di kelompok bukan kelompok, organisasi untuk memperjuangkan kelompok LGBTI, dan kemudian slogan atau kayak apa ya, stigma Panleru itu sudah tidak digunakan lagi. Jadi mereka sekarang di Timor Leste, di publik Timor Leste, mereka sudah hampir bersahabat dengan istilah LGBTI. Jadi sebutnya LGBTI aja. Mereka tidak panggil lagi Panlero. Untuk isu agama di sana kita tidak ngomong masalah agama, karena negara kita negara hukum, bukan negara agama. Perdana Menteri kita pertama orang Muslim, Marial Katiri, itu orang Muslim, dan dia juga merupakan pencetus negara Timor Leste. Jadi tidak ada masalah buat agama buat kita. Toh agama itu kepercayaan itu nanti individu masing-masing akan mempertanggungjawabkan perbuatannya dengan yang dia percaya. Jadi kita tidak mempersoalkan Anda dari agama apa, Anda dari kepercayaan apa, monggo. Jadi untuk negara Timor Leste yang baik, negara Timor Leste yang indah, negara Timor Leste yang hijau, mari kita bahu-membahu untuk membangun Timor Leste seperti negara yang lain. Ya kira-kira itu. Mungkin ya.
Okay, it is just about time for the end of our seminar. We have Manuel would like to share something to wrap us up. We will transition to lunch after this.
Baik, karena tadi aku buka dengan Kamerada Wiji Tukul, puisinya Kamerada Wiji Tukul. Sekarang aku akan menutup dengan puisinya Borja da Costa, salah satu penulis syair di Timor Leste, dengan bahasa Porto. Mudah-mudahan kawan-kawan bisa mengerti ya. Ya. Urastu da tua passagem, silenciaste minha razão, na razão das tuas leis. Sufocaste minha cultura, na cultura da tua cultura. Abafaste minhas revoltas com a ponta da tua baioneta. Torturaste meu corpo nos grilhões da tua império. Sussurraste minha alma na fé da tua religião. Sugaste, assassinaste, massacraste, pilaste. Minha terra, minha gente, banhada em sangue. Encorajada em sangue, barbaramente civilizante na democracia da tua grei, brutalmente colonizante na ambição da tua grandeza. Na ponta da baioneta, assassinaste o rastro da tua passagem. Na ponta da minha baioneta, marcarei na história a forma da minha libertação. Terima kasih. Kira-kira summary dari puisi ini mau mengatakan bahwa dengan Anda mendikte kepercayaan Anda dan kemudian Anda menginjak-injak martabat kami sebagai warga negara, warga sebuah martabat rakyat dari sebuah negara untuk mengusir kolonialisme. Jadi kolonialisme dalam semangat puisi ini dia mau mengatakan bahwa kolonialisme itu bukan sekedar kolonialisme dari luar negeri, tapi kolonialisme yang ada di dalam negeri ini lebih kejam lagi. Jadi misalnya di kita Timur, dia bilang, ini pesannya dia bilang, hati-hati dengan kolonialisme keriting, kolonialisme hitam, itu lebih kejam karena dia akan lebih berbahaya daripada kolonialisme yang rambutnya lurus, kulitnya putih, matanya sipit, ya. Dia bilang itu tidak terlalu kejam karena musuhnya itu kita tahu dia datang dari mana. Tapi musuh yang di dalam ini kita nggak tahu. Itu berbahaya, lebih berbahaya. Terima kasih.
Okay. We also should give a round of applause to all of the conveners of this seminar and the people who worked really hard to make this happen. So thank you to INFID, to Komnas HAM, to the Wallenberg Institute, and Universitas Jember and CHRM. Okay. So the last thing that we'll say is first, thank you to you all for your thoughtful questions and to our panel again. For registered participants, there will be lunch served outside for registered participants. So I think you would have signed in, right? No? Okay. Pretty much everybody should have food. Anyways, there's lunch outside now. Thank you.